And welcome in, friends and future friends, to this episode of the Sports and the World podcast. I'm LaDarius. Hope all of you are well and safe out there on this Thursday. Lots to get to, lots of sports going on. We got Game 3 for the Padres and the Cubs. We got a lot of sports going on, and thank you for taking time out of your day for watching the Sports in the World podcast. Lots to get to. Recap NFL Week 4, transition to Week 5, Thursday Night Football tonight. Browns big bets. We've been doing good, 2 out of 3. We'll get to 3. We'll get the trifecta at some point. And baseball, we definitely got to talk about as well. But I want to lead the show with WNBA and what's going on, and it's the best way to kind of describe it is if you haven't watched it with Napheesa Collier and her comments, and I think what Napheesa Collier did first and foremost, like she told no lies, and many players around the league echoed her sentiments. So that's all you need to know about that. But to give some backstory with the exit interviews that players give once their season is over, the Visa Collier stood on business. And I suggest, if you haven't watched the exit interview, I suggest to take some time out to go and listen to it. So give me just 1 second, friends. I am talking with you. What the fuck is your problem? And I'm back. Sorry about that. Maybe something happened at the door. Now, anyway, going back to Napheesa Collier. Now, like I said, if you haven't watched the whole interview, I suggest you go and watch it. But something she said at the end, she said, I'm calling up WNBA leadership. She said, quote, "The best fans in the world, the best players in the world, but the worst leadership in the world." And that was a direct shot at the bow of WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. Now, if you, like I said, it goes deeper, and then it goes to say that in that same interview, she had the conversation with Cathy Engelbert back in, I believe, February, and she says that Cathy, she said that the commissioner told her Caitlin Clark should be grateful for the WNBA because the league is responsible for her sponsorship deals. Like this cuts really deep, and then of course, and then Caitlin Clark responds. And then Caitlin Clark responds to her exit interview, and basically she echoes and agrees with Fee. She says, "Well, I have great respect for Fee. She made a lot of valid points. Fee said it all. She's created the most important moment in this league's history." And she's absolutely right with this CBA. Now the question becomes leadership. And this is where people don't understand. Where people, I'm not going to sit there and say, most of you who we're working, we have bosses, or we're leaders ourselves. Now, you can have people not like you, but you can still command respect. Now, in that same dichotomy, if people not only like you, but they don't respect you, it's pretty much downhill. And I don't see, Napheesa Collier, multiple time All-Star. WNBA, I find it hard to believe that her word is credible, and she's earned the spot to be one of the faces of the league. And And the fact, and Cathy and the commissioner, like disappointed in the comments. But here's the reality: this is not a one-off thing. When we talk about the WNBA and the commissioner, because this CBA is important. We're talking about players' salaries. We're talking about things that are essential to the core. And to Caitlin Clark's point, this is an important moment for the WNBA. And by the WNBA finals, shout out to the Mercury and the Aces. If I had to listen, A'ja Wilson MVP, I like the Aces to win it. Like they had the second most playoff experience in terms of games entering the playoffs, and it's going to be a matchup. A'ja Wilson, Alyssa Thomas, Chelsea Gray. There's a lot of big names in this, so I just wanted to throw that in as well. Now to go back to my Collier point, everybody around the league, the players, echoed the sentiments, and they agreed. And there were multiple reports that Cathy may not, that the Commissioner Engelbert may not make it through the CBA. And that's pretty damning. Because the reality is, like I said, if people don't have to like you to respect you, because likability, popularity, it peaks in high school. Like popularity, I'm not saying popularity is not important. It is. It helps. But the fact that Cathy's not popular and the fact that she's not respected, I don't see a way she's commissioner for long. And I want to be wrong. I genuinely I don't like to see people lose their jobs or things of that nature. But we have to be honest here. We have to be transparent about the situation. What Napheesa Collier did was send a shockwave and send a message. And she used her platform. And I always talk about how to use your platform. Because sometimes, like even you guys in the chat and you guys that are listening and watching, we all have a platform. And how we use it can make a difference. And it's Napheesa Collier, whether you're Caitlin Clark, whether you're Angel Reese, whether you're A'ja Wilson, you when you earn that right, and how you use it is essential. I just don't see a situation where Commissioner Engelbert can make it out of this, because at the end of the day, the core issue is the respect. People can love you, and there's moments in history we've seen. Like we always ask the question: do you want to be liked, or do you want to be respected? And sometimes you can have both, but in some cases it's one or the other. Because, I think it's Machiavelli. "'Tis better to be feared than loved." Like there's a choice, and it just feels that in the commissioner's case, she just doesn't seem liked, and this is not just like a one-off thing. This has happened on multiple occasions. I don't see a scenario in my mind where she's going to be commissioner for long, because and some of the things that I've heard and read essentially goes to the effect of where like she's a business person who doesn't know about basketball, because she was the former CEO of Deloitte, CEO of the company Deloitte. And so she comes from a business background. And just like you look at Roger Goodell, he came from a legal background. He was a lawyer, he was an attorney. We come from different backgrounds. Adam Silver worked in the commissioner's office. He was the deputy NBA commissioner under David Stern. So experience matters, and what you bring to the job. Cathy brings the business side. But when people say you don't understand about basketball, it helps to know about the product. I'm just saying it helps to know about the product. And I'll say this before we transition to the NFL. It's one of those situations where it boils down to, if the players don't respect you, then how can you be taken seriously at the negotiating table? Because they don't have to like you. I keep saying that a lot because I think sometimes in society we focus on, oh man, they don't like me. But do they respect you? Because there's people that I know that, listen, I'm not saying I hate them, because listen, I believe hate's a very strong emotion. But there's people I don't like, but I respect them. I give them the respect. And it feels like a lot of players don't want to even give Commissioner Engelbert that. They don't want to give her the respect. And that speaks volumes. And Napheesa Collier's comments spoke volumes of the direction of the league, and because there's a lot on the line to get done in this CBA. And at some point, I don't see a situation where, like, it's one thing if you were misquoted but all you to say is that, Napheesa Collier, misrepresented your comments. I don't see the benefit of Napheesa Collier misrepresenting your comments because you didn't necessarily deny it. And why would you make it up? Because here's the fact of the matter is, Caitlin Clark would have gotten the endorsements whether she was in the league or not. For the record, she was offered a multi-million-dollar deal to play in the Big Three. She could have said, I'll play in the Big Three, make probably more money, over the next, just in that 1 year, if you played in the Big Three, than she would have likely have made over the course of multiple seasons in the WNBA. At least over 5 seasons worth of salary. Yes, WNBA is a platform. Sure. But don't give off the vibe like, Caitlin Clark got it because she's in the WNBA. She was getting endorsements at Iowa. She was like, she's not even playing it unrivaled. And there's Athletes Unlimited basketball, which I cover as a writer, so I had to throw that in there. But it's not a good look for the commissioner. And at some point, I don't see a way for her to get out of it. I really don't. And that's a conversation to have for another day. But we got John. John dropped in a comment like, I'm first, and smash the like button. Thank you, John. Speaking of respect, speaking of, people who we respect and not respect, let's transition to the NFL. Listen, week 4 for some teams was absolutely great, as I always say every week on the show. But it was a really, really great week for some teams because they needed it. It was like, whether it's needing a win or just needing to make a statement. And you go back and look at week 4. The New York Giants made a statement against a very good Chargers team, who, by the way, and people ignored the fact that, listen, offensive line, they're banged up. I think Joe Alt, their Pro Bowl left tackle, got hurt. And there were several injuries, and Justin Herbert is getting hit. And I'm like, are we going to do something about it? Or are we good? Because it's a concern. But Jackson Dart went out there and he gave life to a Giants team Russ's last game as the starter wasn't great. It didn't do him any favors. At some point, Jackson Dart was going to be the starting quarterback of the New York Football Giants, because in an era where you have to play your first round pick at some point in their rookie season. And Jackson Dart didn't do terrible. 13-20, 111 yards passing, a touchdown on the ground, 54 yards and another touchdown. But for the Giants, to me, it's always been how great their defense is. Like, their defense has always been good. And it's like they were in the backfield, like they only had 2 sacks this game, I believe. So, but this defense is a testament to that as well. So, and we got somebody else in the chat. It's my wise man. It's Craig. Good evening, Visionary. Good evening, Craig. Thank you for joining. One of the best. I got to get Craig. We got to get you on the show. I keep saying as people I want to get on the show, but I also want to shout out, like I said last week with Haley Murphy. I know she's watching her Tigers. They're in a game 3 situation. So I reached out, but I said no. She has to watch her team, and I totally respect it and I get it. So, but like the Giants needed that. The Giants needed that W. And now I'm not saying it's all over for the Chargers. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but and the Tiger and Craig jumps in. The Tigers won. Okay, thank you. I saw the score earlier, so I didn't know. And the Tiger, listen, shout out to the Tigers, shout out to Scoop. I'm sure Haley, she's gonna tell probably next week. Hope she comes on next week. Like I said, she's the co-host of the show, as I said last week. So we'll talk a little MLB playoffs on the back end. But to get to the Giants' point, it feels like it's just one game, but the Giants, they showed some life. And kudos, and listen, like I said, kudos to them. And when you look across elsewhere, like obviously, like listen, I'll get out of the way. Green Bay and Dallas Dallas was a great game. Jordan Love had a great game. Of course, Pickens had a great game. 40-40 tie. Like, I'm not saying we adopt the college football rule, but it's like NFL games ending in a tie has always seemed odd to me. And after 60 minutes, I feel like there should be a winner. Like, even like in soccer, in some cases, like they play extra time, but like I like penalty kicks. Like, we want a decisive winner. But shout out, that was a great game. If you're Cincinnati, pick up the phone, call Jameis Winston. Jake Browning, we've seen enough. Like, at this point, respectfully, this is what happened. And I said this ad nauseum early. The Bengals made a decision. They said, we'll pay T. Higgins and over Trey Hendrickson. They have no defense. And it showed. And then when Joe Burrow went down, because when it came to the draft, you chose Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell, which is fine. Like I said, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I'm not drudging it up for Bengals fans, but the reality is that when you have a franchise quarterback, you protect him. And we have a lot of people jumping in. We got John saying, I'm taking the bye week to beat the Falcons. Oh, come on, John. We have April. It's Ron. What up, everyone? What's up, Ron or April? Thank you so much. We got we got Christy. Rise up. Great win by the Falcons. Great win. On the bye week. Looking ahead, we got Buffalo on, I believe, prime time on the 13th, on October 13th. So shout out to Miss Christy. I still want to get on you guys' show, the Ladies of AFN, because you guys do great work there. And John saying hi to everybody in the chat. But if you're Cincinnati, I mean, at some point, they have nobody to blame but themselves. It's Joe Burrow can't stay healthy because the offensive line's not great. The defense is not great. Hey, cool. You paid for Jamar Chase. You paid for T. Higgins. You paid for Joe Burrow. If you're paying for just, if you're paying Joe Burrow, great. If you're paying Jamar Chase, great. But, and then when you chose T. Higgins over Trey Hendrickson, and it's not the first time they chose, like, you need Trey Hendrickson. Your D-line is great. Shamar Stewart, like, look, early on, LeMan didn't want to sign, didn't want to play. And now your offensive line is absolutely abhorrent. And now you're in a situation where, like, Joe Burrow, get a quarterback. Because if you want to rock with Jake Browning, cool. But if James is available, Get Jameis Winston. Like, it makes sense. His arm. Like, he's going to throw in. Great. But Jameis' arm, Jameis' energy, because the Bengals need energy. They need energy on that team. And Jameis is the guy I feel that can kind of execute and carry that out. And we got Craig saying the Cubs are winning. I did see that. We're going to listen, Craig, we're still friends, Craig. If we get Cubs and Brewers, I'm not mad at Dodgers Phillies either. Like, that's why I love the MLB postseason. It's like you get these the wild card, these wild card games, these best of three, in my opinion, has made the game better. I mean, I go on a side quest here, but made the game better because it kept more teams involved late August, in early September. It's like, oh, they're still in it because they're chasing wild card spots. There's, some cases have a shot to win the division. That's why with baseball, we can complain, but the changing of their playoff format and their postseason format has done wonders for them, and it's kept more teams, have made more teams buyers than sellers at the trade deadline, and has made the postseason very interesting. And to have multiple series go 3 games, that's just great for baseball. It's great for fans, and I absolutely love it. But if we get Cubs versus Brewers, like, my concern is the rotation. I love the offense. Listen, I'm gonna wear my Pete Crow Armstrong jersey one of these episodes because I absolutely love him. I love Saya Suzuki, Shota Imanaga. I love those guys. And I don't know if you guys want. I'll wear it. I'll wear it if we can pull this off. But I'll wear it for next week's show. I'll probably wear it. And anyway, but back to the Bengals to finish up that point. Like, this looks bad, and Zach Taylor, like listen, his job's on the line. I'll say it. His job feels like it's on the line. Go get Jameis Winston. If you don't want Russ, I get it. Get Jameis Winston. You need energy. And then obviously we have to talk about the Ravens and the Chiefs. And this is the part where I'm not going to say I'm going to drudge up things, but this is what I said. Like, we're all looking at Lamar and Kansas City, like, getting back Xavier Worthy did wonders. It goes to show you that one player can make a difference. You hear it a lot in sports. You're like, but it's the receiver because people figured out, oh, well, Kelsey's not the same guy he used to be. Maybe Hollywood Brown's maybe not the top guy. Rashee Wright's not going to show up for a couple. They needed help. And Xavier Worthy, and nobody on the field could stop him. That's how important of a player Xavier Worthy is to this Chiefs offense. And you saw with Patrick Mahomes 4 touchdown passes. You saw this offense have a jolt. And it just felt like, once again, the Ravens' defense was bad. And this whole narrative, I've said this on previous shows, and I'll say it again. We got to have a conversation about John Harbaugh. And people are like, oh, well, Lamar's hurt. I'm not accepting that. Because the reality is your defense is bad. And they just haven't started being bad. You got some great players on that defense. You got Kyle Hamilton. But however, Matabuga, he's out for the season. You got Marlon Humphrey. You have great defensive players. So why are we bad? I'm not saying fire Zach Orr, but I'm not going to be like, hey, let's blame the Lamar narrative, okay? Because the offense, listen, could Derrick Henry be better? Sure. But Lamar getting hurt just put gasoline on a fire that was already taking place. And for this Ravens team. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not, like I said earlier, I'm not saying fire John Harbaugh. I'm not saying that. All I'm conjecturing is, remember last season we were talking about we should get rid of Mike Tomlin? And I said, go look at their resumes. The only thing that separates Mike Tomlin from John Harbaugh is John Harbaugh's a little bit better in the postseason, but they each have a Super Bowl. And also one guy has Lamar Jackson, the other guy doesn't. Like, at some point, we got to have that conversation about John Harbaugh, because there's a lot to fix. And I think it's all reported that I think Cooper Rush is going to start this coming week against the Texans, which should be fine. But multiple weeks without Lamar, you might have to lean on Derrick Henry a little bit more. Like Cooper Rush isn't a slouch, but you might have to lean more on the run game. So I expect them to run the ball more, be more efficient. The pass game to be a little bit more efficient is the best way I could. Because listen, this is a bounce back game. You gotta beat the Texans. A team that, listen, against the Titans, did you see the play where the ball snapped 0.5 seconds and my guy was already CJ Stroud was already getting sacked? Like the Texans, yeah, they won. They beat the Titans. Okay? Let's be respectful. They beat the Titans. This should be a bounce back game for the Baltimore Ravens. It really should be. And you look ahead to week 5. Of course, we got Thursday Night Football, another back-to-back week of the NFC West, which I put the preview of the games out. It's on social media. It's on Twitter and TikTok, LaDarius_Brown. It's on the Facebook page. It's on, it's everywhere. So I put it out there. So if you get a chance to check it out, much appreciated. So when you're looking ahead to week 5 now, like I said, the NFC West has looked very interesting. Seattle, especially Seattle, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. It's a very interesting division. The NFC West, you can make a case, maybe prove themselves to be one of the better divisions in football. Like I saw San Francisco was a 8.5 point dog. Listen, 49ers plus 8.5 is not a terrible thing, even with Mac Jones as quarterback. Because, I think for the Rams, the key for the Rams is, like, obviously you got Matthew Stafford, and listen, I love the way they're run game. Blake Corum getting some more love, pairing up with Kyron Williams. You still got Puka Nacua. You still got Devontae Adams. The key for the 49ers is simply, obviously, it's Christian McCaffrey. There's no Ricky Pearsall. I believe there's no Juwan. So who do you lean on in that offense? And it has to be CMC, right? It feels like it has to be CMC. So, and I still trust this game to be interesting because these NFC West games, like I said in the preview, the 49ers have lost 3 straight matchups against the Rams, but they've all been by 6 points or less. So they hang around rivalry games, divisional games, like some of them, blowouts, but like when there's 2 great teams in the division, like 2 talented teams, like it's going to be close. And so I expect it to be a very, very close matchup out there at SoFi. It's like I trust, like I'm not saying trust Mac Jones with your life, but Mac Jones has proven to be one of those guys who I kind of trust. So just something to look out for. And listen, we're a lot of bye weeks. Like I said earlier, the Falcons are on a bye this week. A lot of teams are on the bye week. So you're kind of looking at the schedule. Like actually, once again, big game. We talk about the Thursday night game. But I'm also kind of looking. I talked about Houston and Baltimore. And I want another game that has me kind of looking and being super curious is I'm looking at Tampa Bay at Seattle. Like that has all the potential in the world to be like a shootout because Seattle's offense has been fantastic and Baker Mayfield has been fantastic. That could be a low-key, high-scoring game out there in the Pacific Northwest. You're going to look out for that. Denver and Philly is interesting because this Denver defense, I think, they showed what they did Monday night. Yeah, it was the Bengals. But to me, the key to this matchup is Bo Nix and that Denver offensive line against a very, very good Eagles front seven. And that's the key to me. This Eagles defense is the key to me. And Jalen Hurts, we talk about Jalen Hurts. Can Jalen Hurts be able to do what he does? Can he? I think neutralizing Jalen Hurts. Because I always say this about games. People say we got to shut down that guy. I say when you shut down players, think about this, like all-time great players. Think about you can't you can contain Michael Jordan, which means 40 points instead of 50. But trying to stop him is a whole different case. You try to contain him and have somebody else beat you. And I think if you're the Denver Broncos, I think defensively, you want Jalen to throw the football. You want AJ Brown versus Patrick Surtain is going to be a great matchup. I think that's going to be an interesting X Factor sort of matchup there. I really like that game. And then you got the Monday night games. You got the Sunday Night Football Patriots at the Bills. Monday night is the Chiefs at the Jaguars. I think the Chiefs are finding their momentum. I wasn't worried about, like I say, because if you think about this, the Chiefs, coaching quarterback matters. I talk about experience. The Chiefs, I said entering this season, may not win the AFC West because I still feel like the Chargers, when they're healthy, and Denver is still out there. It wouldn't shock me if Kansas City got in by the wild card. Would not. And I had those vibes entering the season because it felt like there was a bit of a letdown. Like the Super Bowl, hangover, where they got embarrassed by the Eagles. Because as a Falcons fan, for those for the Falcons fans in this chat, we remember 28-3, and how for a while we were not the same team for a while. And I could argue it cost Dan Quinn his job in Atlanta because of that. So, but I think it's about riding the ship. And I think with Andy Reid, Hall of Fame coach, you got a Hall of Fame quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, you got a Hall of Fame tight end, there's leadership on that team. And they're going to be fine. It's a matter of, they're going to struggle still, but what we saw against the Baltimore Ravens was a statement. What we saw was hey, we are still a great team. We're still, we're fine. That was like a we're fine game. We're good. So that's kind of the thoughts on that. And listen, before I go to Browns big bets, two things to take care of. Listen, and subscribe to every episode. To this episode and every episode of the Sports and the World podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Go to Apple, go to Spotify, give it a like, give it a comment. 5 stars I prefer. But listen, 4.5, you're making me work for it, and I perfectly respect it. And in terms of the baseball going on, shout out Dodgers advance, like I mentioned earlier, over the Reds. We got the Cubs. The Cubs are winning. I think we can, because in fact it's on my phone. We're up 2-0. It's the top of the 5th inning, so we're doing great there. Tigers winning. Listen, I'll say it once. October baseball, it hits different. Certain sports hit differently from a postseason perspective. Baseball, it just hits different. And that's why I say the inclusion of the wild card in the format has done absolutely wonders. And like I mentioned, WNBA finals, Mercury Aces, would not surprise me if that game went 6-7 games, given how the Aces just came out. And listen, I don't listen. The WNBA play has been great, and shout out to the Indiana Fever, Kelsey Mitchell. She's fine after the cramps in her. So, and it's you're only working on 2 stars for today so far. Okay, 2 stars. You're only working on 2 stars. Okay, how do I do better? Is the resume? It's how do I do better? But want to get that out by baseball. And like I say, next week we'll probably get into more of the postseason as well. But close up the show. Let's do Browns big bets. 2-1 last week. I messed up on the under. The Oregon and Penn State, they went into overtime, and I'm like, win some and lose some. But here we go. Browns big bets. Let's try to go for perfection. And for this game, let's head to the ACC. Let's head Wake Forest at Virginia Tech. And when you look at Wake Forest, they are 6.5-point dogs. This is their first true road game. Against listen, when they fired Brent Pry, Virginia Tech did, like, Philip Montgomery took over, and they're 2-0. Like, they look different. But when I look at this Wake Forest team, and like, listen, last week you can't get any more devastating of a loss than that last week, and it was a great game. And they came up short. Jake Dickert and his team, they came up short at home. They're 2-2. They're 0-2 in the ACC. So they going down 0-3. Like, listen, going to 0-2 is bad. But listen, Virginia, they gave Georgia Tech everything, and they came up short. And they're 6.5-point dogs. And I like Virginia Tech. It's a great story. They're turning it around. But if you're giving me Wake Forest 6.5 dogs, I take the plus 6.5. If you want to go outright with it, cool. But listen, here's the thing with Wake Forest. 17, to me, it's all about the third downs. And this is where the true tale of the tape comes, where Wake Forest, 17 team third down per game. That's third in the nation. Virginia Tech, defensively, they're tied for the third in team opponent third downs per game at 10.5. So, to me, it comes down to points. Wake Forest, 82nd in the nation, 26.2 points per game. However, Virginia Tech, they allow 20 points per game. It's 102nd in the nation. When you look at it, it's, there's 136, 35 teams, so it's not terrible. But if you're giving me Wake Forest on the road coming off a tough loss, you can't go down 0-3 in the ACC. And so I really like those odds. So give me Wake Forest plus 6.5 on Saturday. Now, shifting gears, let's go to the SEC. Like, for the record, I'm not covering the Texas-Florida game. I don't want to bias, but if I had to say, Florida has to show up at some point, right? They got to show up. I don't know. That's my Florida Gators commentary. But no. Let's talk about number 19 ranked Vanderbilt heading to Bryant-Denny Stadium to face the 10th ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. To me, you can get two bets in one. To me, you're giving me Vanderbilt plus 10.5. Alabama coming off a big win against Georgia. Big win. And Vanderbilt 5-0. Like, the last time they were 5-0, listen, I'm not gonna lie, like, it's been a minute. Like, how much of a minute? Like, another century minute. And Clark Lee and that team is doing great. And you look at Vanderbilt, they do their work in the first half. These two offenses, Alabama's and the Commodores, it's all about the halves. Vanderbilt, they lead the nation, 25.8 team second half points per game. That leads the nation. Alabama, they're 10th in the nation in first half points per game at 23.5. You can go plus 10.5. You can go over 55.5. I think Alabama. I'm not saying Alabama's going to fall asleep. I think they're going to be up in the alert. Kalen DeBoer's going to have them ready. But I think Vanderbilt's ready. This ain't your mama. This ain't your parents' Vanderbilt Commodores team. Like, this team feels different. And a win, and the way the SEC is shaping. I tell people, think about this. Did you have Vanderbilt going 5-0? If you did, then you should go play the lottery, because I certainly did, and a lot of people did. And they're 1-0 in the conference. So that means they got plenty of and the gauntlet starts in Alabama. It starts in Tuscaloosa. And a win here makes things a little interesting, because Texas, they're playing their first SEC game against Florida, as I mentioned earlier. Like, Alabama got their win. Like, think about this. Like, if you're like the only team with multiple losses right now in the SEC in terms of SEC games, South Carolina, Auburn, Kentucky. Like LSU, Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Florida, they all have one loss. Think about Vanderbilt to get 2-0, and they have a gauntlet. Like I said, they have a gauntlet to go through. But I really, really, really take the 55.5 over if you want, plus 10.5. It's a bonus bet, whichever way you want to go. So, but the one I'm locking in with is Vanderbilt plus 10.5. I think Vanderbilt can hang around. I really do. The key is their defense. I think both of it's about the defense here in both of these games. Excuse me, in that game. Last but not least, I didn't listen. I usually try to do different conferences, but I'm sticking with the ACC again, and we have Miami, third-ranked Miami, heading to Tallahassee to face number 18 FSU. Listen, FSU, they overlooked Virginia. Like, the way they played, they went to overtime, but they overlooked them. They overlooked the heck out of Virginia, and it showed. And that Virginia Cavaliers team, that Tony Elliott team, looks fantastic, and they overlooked them. But if I'm getting the over 54.5, like, obviously Miami's favored. But look at Miami, they're averaging almost 37 points a game. They're 32nd in the nation in points per game. FSU, the offense, despite what happened, like even Virginia, the offense picked up a bit. Like, they're fourth in team yards per play at 7.4. Like, both offenses could go. Carson Beck changes scenery, went to Coral Gables. The offense looking great, and it also helps to have a pretty good run game as well. It's also pretty good. Like, Carson Beck is great. Carson Beck is fantastic. And he leads the ACC 73.2 completion percentage. So he's efficient with the football. And like I said, it also helps to have a great running back. It also has a great run game when you have Mark Fletcher and Chamar Brown combining for 9 rushing touchdowns. That helps too. It also kind of helps when your defense is not terrible, but I think both defenses are going to be pushed to the absolute limit. Florida State, like, bouncing back. Is their defense prepared to face this Miami rushing attack? And listen, they're no slouch at the receiver position. Like, yeah, we talk about Mark Fletcher, we talk about Chamar Brown. Absolutely. But listen, Malachi Toney, that's a guy to look for. He just 1 touchdown this season, but if there was ever a game where you turn it around, this would be the game. So I like the over. So I like the over 54.5 in that game. And friends and future friends, that's the show. And once again, like, comment, share your thoughts on the show. Hit me up on my social, Twitter and TikTok at LaDarius_Brown, Facebook LaDarius _Brown. Hit me up on, I know most people don't use Facebook, but hit me up, because like I said, this is your show, and you guys have shown up for me, which means the absolute world to me. And like I said, you can also leave comments and leave questions, and I'll answer them on the show for sure. But friends and future friends, that's another episode of the Sports and the World podcast in the books. And before Craig, it's okay. The end of the show got you to 5 stars. There we go, Craig. Thank you. And until friends and future friends, until I see and or hear you again next time, I'm LaDarius. Be real, be you, be blessed, and be safe from all of us here from the Sports and the World podcast.